Hello Willowkins and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some really good creamy beef stroganoff, but vegan. It is not the healthiest dish out there, but trust me when I say it is delicious. It's like one of those meals that you want to have on like a special occasion or just to like indulge in. Okay, so let's get started. So I like to pre-chop my veggies as much as I can. So this is an onion here, and we're going to be adding all of this. Then we have some thyme, some parsley, onion powder, some garlic powder, soy sauce. You can also use tamari or coconut aminos, vegetable broth, but you can also use no chicken broth. It's vegan, and you can find it in some grocery stores, but I'm just using the vegetable broth. And then, of course, you'll want some salt and pepper, and I'm using pink sea salt and just peppercorn. Alright, and you also want to boil some water while you're making this. So I have my water already going right now, and I'm going to prepare the sauce. So we're going to be adding these beefless tips to the pan. I'm not going to use any oil, but you can add a little bit of vegetable broth or water to the pan to kind of cook it a little bit more, like saute along with your onions here. I'm going to try to make this oil-free. So you can add oil if you want to, or even butter, but I'm going to try to make it not so heavy this time around, and I'm sure it will taste great. But just for like 2 people, I add about 8 of these, and I chop them up into like little pieces. So it works for me. If you have more people than just 2, I would go ahead and just add more, depending on how much how many people you're feeding. If you're feeding like a whole family, I'd say probably either a whole family, like 4 people, maybe half the bag. It really depends. I mean, you could add the whole bag if you really wanted to, and not chop it up, and that's totally fine, but I like to try to save ingredients as much as I can, so I only use 8 of these, but it works out. Alright, so we have almost 2 cups of the broth here, and that is totally fine. You can go just to the 2, but I'm going right here, and that is going to be fine for this dish. If you, like I said, the more people you have, the more you'll want to add of the broth, because that is going to be your base. So, yeah, we'll have this. And then, I know this sounds very odd, but we're going to do 2.5 capfuls of this soy sauce. And again, you can use tamari or coconut aminos. I try to get the reduced sodium here because the normal one, it just is way too salty for me. So, and I like to add my own kind of salt levels. So I'm using this, and like I said, 2 capfuls, and then a half of this will be going into this. And I'll also have these in the pan. We're going to flip these over a little bit here. Just to make sure all sides kind of cook evenly. And then once they start to get a little bit more kind of squishier, that's when we're going to cut them in half, and then kind of in fourths, I guess you could say. So they're little pieces. Alright. And we're going to add these onions now to those beefless tips to let them kind of saute. And like I said, if they start to stick to the pan too much, you can just go ahead and add some broth or water, and because we want to keep that flavor that is building up on the pan in there, so we'll just keep that going and stir it a little bit. If you want the onions to cook a little bit quicker, you can add the vegetable broth or water to get them like that golden color or translucent. Otherwise, you can just leave them kind of stick to the pan a little bit, and then we'll deglaze anyways, so yeah. And then this is kind of what I mean by cutting them into fourths. So all of these pieces will kind of look like that. Alright, now we're going to add our seasonings to our broth here. We're going to be adding quite a bit, so I'll do that off camera and then so it doesn't get so shaky. So that's about how much thyme I use. I use it to mainly cover or almost cover the top of that. I want to say it's about maybe a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more, and then I will be adding the same amount of the parsley. So it should look like that now, and then I'm going to add the onion powder, which I'm gonna probably guess is about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more, and then also of the garlic, same amount, maybe a little bit more. I'm sorry, I don't really have very many measurements for these spices, but it's really to taste and how you like your meal. I do add more of this stuff as it's cooking, but this is what I start off with, and then I'll also add my salt and pepper, but I'll do that off camera, and then I'll be adding some flour. You can use any kind of flour that you prefer, and it's going to be about 1/4 cup, and then you'll whisk it in here to try to get the clumps out, and then we'll transfer that to here, and now you can kind of see it's browned really nicely. We have all this caramelization going on in the pan, and that's great because that's where a lot of the flavor is going to be when we deglaze the pan with our sauce here. So it's getting exciting, we're almost there. Alright, so it is all mixed and ready to go, so we are going to pour that in. And then you don't want to leave the bits behind, so we'll scrape that all out into our pan here because we want that other stuff in there. And then we're also going to add about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard to this, and we're going to mix it all together. You want to really kind of scrape the bottom of this pan to get those sauteed bits into the sauce. So like that caramelization that you saw earlier, we want to get that off the bottom and into the sauce. So we're just working that in. And then we're going to add our Dijon to this. It's going to be about that much. So maybe a little bit more than a teaspoon, but really not that much. And you're just going to mix that in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn the burner up, or if you're using electric, just turning that heat up until it starts to boil and thicken. And it will thicken for roughly, I want to say, 11 minutes or so. And you'll notice it will start to really get thicker and nice. So we'll just turn the heat up on this, and we are going to add our noodles in now. And we're just going to be using the rotini noodles. Yeah. So this is what it's starting to look like. It's starting to thicken and kind of resemble like a gravy. And I'm not going to add any more seasonings except for maybe pepper and a pinch more salt. I have to do a taste test to see, but my mouth is already watering. This is going to be really good. And you can also add some frozen peas. You can add broccoli. You could add them both. You could add spinach to this. I'm going to add some peas. I usually will do broccoli, but this time I'm going to do peas. Alright. And obviously, for the thyme and parsley, fresh is best, but I only have the dried, and so that's what I work with. But see how it's like a gravy now? It's looking good. We're going to turn this down just a smidge, so that way our noodles have time to cook. And then we'll add our final ingredient to our sauce. And then once the noodles are done, we'll put those in. Alright, time for the final ingredient. Tofutti sour cream. And we're going to add about 1 tablespoon of this or so to the sauce. Maybe 2, depending. Alright, so I use about 1.5 tablespoons. We're just going to mix that in. And our noodles should be almost done, and then we'll add those in and mix it all together, and then there you go. And this dish is really good. If you do add the oil to make a roux, which is essentially what we did, but oil-free and butter-free, by putting the flour in the broth mixture and mixing it with that whisk. If you do like a traditional roux with vegan butter, you're going to be upping the fat intake, which is totally fine. But I like to try to make it just a tad bit more healthier, so that way it's not too thick, you know? Because it can be a pretty thick dish, rich dish. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The lighting in here is not doing it justice. It's like, looking very odd, but yeah, this is, I mean, it's darker than this. It's not picking it up really on the camera because I think the steam is also coming in, so. But it's like a kind of a tan color. It's really beautiful. Like I said, it's not the healthiest dish in the world, but we try to make it healthier by adding the peas or the broccoli. Oop, that's the noodles. And, so yeah. And this is what it should look like, all mixed in with the noodles. It is looking really good. It's very creamy. So yeah, that is what it is. And like I said before, I got the noodles. We try to make it a little bit more healthier by adding some veggies in and not using so much oil for like the roux and cooking the onion and the beefless tips. So, yeah. Give it a try. Tell me how you like it, if you've tried it. And I look forward to hearing from you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Sorry for the mess. And I will see you on the next one. And I hope you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.